Could you tell this is a fake Vokey wedge? And how good is it against the real thing? Most of you watching this video would have seen Rick's review of the fake Taylormade driver versus the real one, and not only aesthetically were there major differences, but the results were staggering, making it blatantly obvious whether you have a real genuine Taylormade driver or a fake one. But when there is less complicated components to manufacture and a more robust material being used in the design, could the same be said for a real expensive Vokey wedge versus a counterfeit one? So not only are we going to be looking at the aesthetics of both wedges so you don't become a victim of buying a fake Vokey wedge thinking that you're getting the real deal, but we also have the GC3 launch monitor out on the golf course to do some on-course testing and see if we can see any differences between the numbers of both wedges. Now, quick shout out to Glenn, who donated this fake wedge to the channel for testing and showing you guys, as he did fall victim of buying a few of these off Facebook thinking he was getting the real deal, and if it wasn't for him we wouldn't be able to make this video. But there was one small challenge we had to conquer: finding a discontinued legitimate SM8 Vokey wedge that's 52 degrees, 8 degrees bounce, F grind with the original shaft and original grip, which, let me tell you, after a week on Facebook, Gumtree and eBay, is a lot harder than you think. However, I thought my luck had turned around as I spent this morning traveling to Replay Golf in Windlesham to go and pick up what I thought was available on their website, and it wasn't. I didn't notice the sold listing underneath it. Luckily, I had a fallback plan, which was Danny, who I messaged straight after my loss at Replay Golf, and he instantly replied saying yes, I could have this 52 degree wedge with 12 degree bounce for £70 cash. So it's not the exact copy as this one, but after a week I think I should just get this video out. So here they are side by side. I'm going to give you a close-up of both of them, spot the details that I've noticed in terms of the difference between the real and fake one. But one thing we have to do first is check the loft and lie of both of these clubs to make sure that at least they're the same when it comes to static measurements. To my amazement, the fake SM8 wedge was pretty much on the nose with both. Spot on for lie angle, 64 degrees and 52.2. Basically still on the money in terms of loft, and considering tolerances in golf aren't the best from the real manufacturers, I don't know if I got lucky with the fact that this one was bang on the money, but that did somewhat shock me. And obviously I loft and lied the real version as well, and again loft pretty good, 51.5, so slightly stronger, and lie angle was out by a degree, 63 degrees, but that is to be expected as this Vokey wedge here would have been used, hit on the range, out on the golf course, and could have been altered over the last year that it has been used. And I think we're all in agreement that if you didn't have a real one next to the fake one, and especially with not that much knowledge in Vokey wedges, like myself, I never hit the SM8 wedge ever. Therefore, if I saw this in the bottom of a second-hand set of golf clubs, maybe they've got ping irons, another driver, from this alone, I don't think I'd be able to tell whatsoever. Firstly, the grip, and to be fair, Glenn, who gave me the wedge, spotted this before I did, gave me a bit of a heads up. Number one, you can see the detailing in the white Tour Velvet Golf Pride, very much a legitimate and real Golf Pride grip, whereas the writing and also the shape, which is quite important, of the fake one there, you can see how much more rounded the fake Golf Pride grip is, as well as the lettering and everything else. In terms of the hosel, even from the ferrule to the detailing around the hosel, I don't think there's much difference at all, apart from one alarming feature. And one of the reasons I'm making this video, so that potentially you guys can use this as a reference point, the real serial number from Titleist themselves, you can see how much more spaced out the numbers are, as well as how much more darker the numbers are as well. Very much a bit more grey from the fake one, as you can see here, and the numbers are a lot closer together. Now, sadly, when it comes to the back and the top of the wedge, I don't think there's anything that stands out in the two of these wedges that I can honestly say go and look out for, because yes, the numbers are slightly different. There's M8 on the back of the fake one here, as well as the numbers here, slightly bigger, slightly larger than, let's say, the real one. Bit more discreet, a bit more definitive, but unless you've got a real SM8 wedge, which I imagine you wouldn't have, hence why you're looking to buy one, it's almost impossible, I would say, to tell these two apart. Now, I have to say, when Glenn first showed me the face of this counterfeit Vokey wedge, I was shocked with the detailing on there. So much detailing, in fact, it's potentially making a difference to your numbers. You can see how the grooves not only cut out, but it's almost got a milled face effect, even from the toe all the way to the grooves. And again, if you saw this wedge with milled toe, somewhat milled engravings in between each of those grooves, you're surely going to think that is the legitimate one. Now, there are differences again between the depth, the quantity, the quality of the face. Again, you can see how the real Vokey very much blends from toe to the actual face itself. You can see how much more pointy the ending of each groove is here on the real one compared to, let's say, the fake one. But again, the detailing that these people have gone into to try and recreate a real Vokey wedge, they've almost done such a good job. I'm actually interested to see how it performs on the golf course. Now, before we do any performance testing, there's something that I've noticed and is very important before we go forward, because I know a lot of you are probably thinking, Simon, this is starting to look pretty good. 130, 140, I don't even know, but they normally go in sets, I've seen in places. So for one legitimate Vokey wedge, you could potentially get 3 of these counterfeit ones. But when you start looking at the grooves and how wide and deep the grooves are, it doesn't surprise me that a company that's making counterfeit copies of a legitimate company would also then stretch and push the parameters of what the wedges are and aren't allowed to do. So it goes without saying, these wedges wouldn't be able to be used in competition. These are illegal wedges, they're non-conforming, and to be honest, it's unfair to the manufacturer in terms of the performance test side, because realistically, the fake one should outperform the manufacturer that has to stick to the rules. But when I put them side by side and kind of gave them a little waggle of feel, you know, the normal golfer's test that we all do in a pro shop, they felt virtually the same, especially when it came to swing weighting. And it adds to another test that these guys have gone to such lengths to make a real copy. Even myself with a blind test would struggle to put these two apart just on a feel basis. So before I show you the results of both wedges side by side and the data and my conclusion, looking at the price difference versus the data and what each one is giving you, something we should know is that my wedge play is okay, and I'm not a robot. Therefore, there are going to be anomalies from the data. Needless to say, we hit enough good ones that we could probably distinguish the two apart. Up first, the 40-yard test, and I have to say I couldn't tell the slightest bit of difference between the pair of them, and that probably says more about my wedge play. But the good shots were basically determined from the way I struck the golf ball, the attack angle, club head speed, the way I got into it. After I had a bit of a warm-up, I started with the fake, went into the real, and I have to say, from both dispersion circles, from both wedges, I think I would accept that on pretty much any given day. But that's probably nothing new here, because I've been saying that about wedges for a very long time. 30-pound wedges, 40-pound wedges, 50-pound wedges. Technique is king around the green, and definitely not technology. Now, I did want to hit some fairway shots, but like most of England, Sanford is quite bouncy at the moment, as we haven't had that much rain, which is probably a strange thing to hear about our country, but that is a fact. So I got a bit creative. We found a few tee boxes to hit some of these wedges, as I wanted to get a bit of turf interaction, as well as hit out the rough as well. The whole idea of wedges, high performance wedges, expensive wedges, is that they can perform not only on the dry, but also through the the wedge. So we picked one of the hardest distances, realistically, I think, in wedges. Is that half swing, 80-yard shot. One off the short grass, one off the long grass. And again, throughout this test, it was technique more than anything. Feel in terms of swing weight, the way the club felt throughout my swing, the real one edged it. But again, you could put that down to personal preference, opposed to the wedge itself. When you're looking at the spin data, the launch angles, that was more to do with the way I was striking the golf ball opposed to the actual wedge itself. And interestingly, even out of the rough, I did catch more spin with the fake one than I did with the real one, but that's because I hit the real one heavy. But then we move on to the full swing. I even teed up the ball as well, as I wanted no excuses, and I wanted that perfect lie that I can get into the ball at a decent speed. And I have to say, when I hit the fake first of all, I was getting decent height and I was getting decent spin, edging on that 10,000 mark. And realistically, that's going to allow you to stop the ball on a green from 100 yards. And I have to say, I was quite happy with the way it performed. That was until I hit the real one. And again, I could put this back to the last test. It just felt better and more balanced in my hands, which potentially resulted in me swinging it faster, which it did over the next 3 shots. I swung it faster, which gave me more ball speed, which then gave me more backspin as well. But overall, I have to say, the flight wise, the way it came off the face, the way it sounded, and even on one of the bad shots that I pulled slightly, overall it definitely outperformed the fake wedge. But we can't stop there, because let's be honest, I just swung the real wedge faster. So I ran to the green, I only had 6 Pro Vs with me, I brought them back, and then I went flat out with both wedges again, and lo and behold, I was able to swing the fake wedge at 90 miles an hour, and we were able to consistently get that 10,000 mark worth of backspin. But then I thought, well, now I'm going flat out with the fake, let's go flat out with the real. And then I got into the 11,000s, 11,500s, and I was able to get even more ball speed and more club head speed. But before I close up on all that performance and data, there's a few other cons of the fake wedge that came to reality after we've hit about 20 shots or so. Number one is the quality. All of a sudden you're starting to see some decent wear marks on the face. As I say, I've only hit 5 to 10 chip shots, pitch shots, and then 6 flat out shots with this wedge, but you're starting to see that lovely glossy finish that was apparent on the face pretty much coming off. So that doesn't bode well with how long this wedge is going to last in the future. The grip also was a similar story. I was starting to see wear and tear on the top of the grip, and don't get me wrong, I grip wedges and clubs for dear lives. That's probably me more than anyone else, but the Golf Pride grip again will hold the test of time. Not to mention the wedge itself has had a whole other user and rounds and playing, and now all of a sudden it's starting to look better than the fake one that's only just got out the wrapper. So Simon, is that it? Do we now need to go and buy brand new SM9 wedges for £170 each? No. Or do I recommend you go and get the fake £150 for 3 Titleist Vokey wedge set? No. All today has confirmed for me is how undervalued second-hand wedges are in terms of performance, how much we don't appreciate technique when it comes to striking a decent wedge in the first place, and how overvalued brand new wedges are at £170 each, when an imitation copy can pretty much perform 92% of the way there as soon as they come out the wrapper. What I would recommend, however, is going finding a second-hand set of SM7s or SM6s that are legal to play in competition, that potentially feel sound and perform better than the counterfeit set that I had here today. And not only that, probably lasting longer than the year, even though they've been out 4 years already. Guys, if you like this video, you might like this one up here on the left hand side. Catch you guys later.